So this is an experimental segment that I'm trying today. I was thinking of calling it practical wisdom. Wisdom's a funny thing because the moment you start to tell anyone that you're gonna give them wisdom, then immediately it's kind of like you don't have it. It's like you're suspect. So, there's that old saying that the one who knows who doesn't know, knows, and the one who thinks he knows doesn't know. So, in a way, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I do think I know something, and it may be, there may be some partial truths in there, but, if everybody who thought they had wisdom just thought to themselves, well, I must not know because I think I know, then we'd have no philosophy and no Buddhas and no Jesuses and none of the great prophets or leaders of of history. So today, I think I want to talk specifically about wisdom because it's missing in the dominant culture right now. In the dominant culture, the media culture, what we're fed is the opposite of wisdom. The leader of the free world is not a wise person. He's very reactive and self-centered and doesn't have a good long-term vision for the world that is going to make it better for everybody. I think you can sum up the opposite of wisdom by saying it's reaction. So wisdom is the opposite of reaction. So if you're, let's say your wife leaves the lights on in your car, and then you get up, you're late for work, you run out to go and start your car, and it doesn't start, and then you know that she was the last one that uses it, and you see that the lights are on. So an unwise approach would be to run in and yell and scream at her. Why did you leave the lights on? God, I'm going to be late. And that doesn't really help anything. But a wise person doesn't do nothing. A wise person responds in a calculated way for the benefit of what they're trying to create, and for in a way that is a win-win, beneficial for everybody. I just thought you should know that it's 114 degrees right now. A lot of time it'll get up to 133 or 4 before I get out. There's a bug going around our house and our neighborhood, so I don't think I'll make it to 133 today. But so I digress. The point is, a much wiser way to approach a situation like that would be to think it through and to walk in and say to your wife, say, honey, did you realize that you left the lights on in the car and now the battery's dead and I'm going to be late for work? What can we do so that you remember, well, first of all, what happened? Were you busy? Were you stressed? Was the baby crying? And whatever was happening in the context of that, then try to come up with a plan of how, if a similar event happened in the future, how could you make a plan that would mitigate those circumstances, so that if it's a forgetting or if it was some other reason, hopefully it wasn't spiteful. If it was spiteful, then you have a whole other set of problems which you got to deal with. So So then you could come up with a plan that said if it gets really super busy, and babies are crying and you come out of the car, that maybe you put up a checklist, before you go to bed checklist, maybe you turn to your partner and say, okay, are all the critical things done today? And it may not work every time, but that's a much wiser way to get what you want than to just be in this constant reactive mode of like, something went wrong and I better go say something, because we tend to want to take any type of action. That's what you're seeing in the mass politics. It really affects the mass culture. So unfortunately, the power that the President of the United States has it's not really, the biggest power he has isn't the nuclear button and the military and all those things. Those are powers, but the biggest power he has is he has the power to shape the dialogue that we all are in. So he's shaping the questions that we're asking each other. And that's really not, the questions he's having us ask one another are not wise. They're very regressive. So instead we should be asking ourselves questions like, I being a liberal but conservative fiscally in a strange kind of way, I'm very much a liberal in when it comes to the environment and when it comes to equal opportunity and fighting against corporate unfair influence in government and in regulations. So how can I, as someone who comes from that frame, how can I relate to a conservative who has a very different frame? One thing that's interesting that's I really believe is a wise way to approach these macro issues. And these macro issues, if you look around, they're everywhere in your life. It could be your partner, it could be your neighbor, it could be your boss, it could be your coworker. There's this reactiveness that is now permeating the culture. So we need to, as beings who are committed to a path that is nonviolent and is mutually beneficial, good for the environment, good for each other, equal opportunity, not giving some people rights over other people, everybody having rights, equal rights and equal opportunities. It's up to us to reframe those conversations in our life. So that if you're having an issue with your boss and it looks like this very reactive thing where he's holding this position and you're holding this position, you want to start with what's the common ground? What are the things that you can agree upon? A simple place is we all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want good relations with our neighbors. We all want to be happy. We all want to be healthy. We all want to be wealthy. And we all want a beautiful place to live. And so if we can at least begin the conversation from there, then we can keep coming back. And the role of the wise person in an interaction is to keep bringing the conversation back to that. Because the other side, if they're not committed to responsiveness rather than reactiveness, and really a interdependent view of the earth. So that would be another tenet of a wise approach to life, is you start with this idea that life is interdependent. There's this unwise way of looking at the world is that life is, it's mine. I'm gonna get mine. And once I get mine, then maybe I'll pay attention to doing good out in the world. And I hear that all the time in sort of success and self-help books. And I just want to say that that's wrong. especially if you're thinking from a macro context and a long-term context. The more you sacrifice, the process, the ends does not justify the means. You have to be completely focused on the means the whole time. Is how I'm doing what I'm doing, am I doing it in a way that I can feel good about? If I was doing it to my best friend, or if I was doing it to my wife, or if I was doing it to my kid, I have to feel good about that. So, so the wise approach really means that you have to be the grounding rod for making solutions in specific situations. I have to say to my liberal friends, I get really sad when I see liberal media only focusing on the just the story of badness. I don't agree with the stuff that is being done on a macro political level in any way, but it's much more effective if we pick one specific thing that is the easiest thing and the most impactful thing that will lay a foundation for future actions. So that's, again, a wise approach. It's non-reactionary. You look at 9/11 and all the shit that happened with the TSA in the airports, that didn't make us any safer. It was just a reaction. So many people needed to you have to oh, I gotta feel safe. But it didn't make you any safer. It just gave you that temporary reactive pause, and then you went right back into reacting something else. So I think it's really critical, if you're committed to being a wise person, that you constantly check, am I reacting right now? Am I mindlessly taking an action? Am I mindlessly reacting to what my quote-unquote enemy is doing? Like Gandhi says, you do not condone their behavior. You let them know clearly that your behavior is wrong. It's unjust. It's going to hurt a lot of good people. It's going to hurt the quality of life on Earth. It's going to hurt future generations. So don't condone your actions. But a lot of times we fall into this name-calling thing where we call the person bad or the person evil, and that's simply not the case statistically. Even a homicidal maniac is shut down to their emotions, so they don't actually feel it as an evil act. They don't feel it. So in politics, it's the opposite. The other side feels that what they're doing is a righteous good act, and it's just ill-informed and ignorant on one level. And it's ignorant on the level. So this is another very important idea when it comes to being wise. You have to take your frame and realize that you have a ton of biases. Being a liberal, growing in a fairly liberal household, in a moderately well-off household, not super wealthy or anything, and I definitely struggled with money and still do from time to time. But I had a certain set of opportunities and a certain emotional context that I grew up in that enabled me to see things in a particular way. And then I did a lot of training that enabled me to see things even deeper. So one of the things that we do is we tend to forget that the person that we're talking to is literally like an alien from another planet. If you take the sum total from their birth all the way to where they are today, you really can't relate to where they're coming from. It's completely alien territory. So if you start from that premise and you go, okay, I'm going to really try to figure out what this alien species is trying to tell me, then you focus in on those commonalities. And then from those commonalities you grow out, and then you can actually finish up we need more and more people to commit to the wise path. And that is a hard path. It's slow, it's long, it takes an incredible amount of courage, it takes an incredible amount of yielding your own righteousness and being willing to look for where you're wrong and to be honest, brutally honest with yourself when you're overstepping your bounds and just trying to make yourself more comfortable, because we all do it. We're all part these altruistic, interdependent beings, and part just trying to survive. So, the more that we move down the path of wisdom and the path of self knowledge, then the better we get at resolving conflict in the world, and the more clear the actions become to us. So I've been thinking about politics a little bit, and I haven't come up with anything really powerful in terms of how to deal with the reactiveness of our conversation and our the President of the United States and everyone that he's surrounded himself with, and the people that are in power. But I know that if we continue to ask the question, what are the most important things that we can do that will have a result that will enable us to take more actions in the future and will be, for lack of a better terms, a righteous means, so that we don't have to look back and say, well, we did really some nasty things in order to get what we wanted. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing this idea that it doesn't matter what you do. You can break the rules. You can bend the rules. You can, say that it's good. You can say that it's right when it happens to work in your favor, and you can say that it's wrong when it happens not to work in your favor. And frankly, that's the reason that, one of the reasons that people are so fed up with politics. I have to also say that I'm really ashamed by how few people take seriously the privilege it is to be a citizen in a moderately functioning democracy. We have lots of flaws, we have lots of corruption, but we are not in the position of many countries that have it much worse off in terms of their leadership. We do have some means to hold some of our leaders accountable in a lot of ways. And I really feel that, if you or someone didn't vote in this last election, that you really need to do some soul searching, because what the world is going through it's directly attributed to this idea that is pervasive in our culture that I don't matter. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. If you really dig deep into politics, and conservative or Republican, however it is, what they're always trying to do is manipulate public opinion. So if the public didn't have any power, then they wouldn't do that. So you have the power, and so do I, and so does everyone we know. The challenge is that we have to figure out how to align behind singular, effective actions that we can make concrete, tangible goals towards and agree upon. So let's not go for the grandiose goals at first. Let's work our way there with slow, easy goals. And easy is not the right word, but slow, methodical, smaller goals that take, a month, a couple of months. So one goal I think would be really great for the Liberals to get behind is to see if there's any way that we can take back the Senate in a couple of years. I have no idea what the numbers are. I hope that there's a possibility of that. if enough committed people get behind it, then anything's possible. But it has to be wise action. It has to be consistent action. It has to be action that comes from a place of acknowledging where we're wrong and still at the same time holding those that are harming our friends and our family and our environment accountable. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been valuable. If you like the experimental, practical wisdom sauna, like it, subscribe to the channel, go to the website, wildalive.net, and have a wise day. Make it a wise day. Make the world a better place with the responsive, wise actions that you take today. By the way, it is, I'll give you a second here. It's not telling me what the temperature is, but it feels really hot. It's 125. Okay. Ciao.